This is American First Patriot Podcast. Defending freedom and liberty is our motto. We put God first and politics second. Welcome to the show. I'm your Patriot host, Chauncey I. We have an exciting show lined up for you. We have a candidate that is running for Congress in North Carolina that is on the ground 24/7, shaking hands, welcoming and talking to people across her district. She comes from a family of a military background. Her experiences growing up, going to a historical black college, Fayetteville State University, studying criminal justice. This woman has the insight and the tenacity of people in North Carolina. She wants to put her hard work for you in the 11th District of North Carolina. Let me welcome, without any further ado, Christine Villaverde. I hope I said it correctly. She's going to correct me. Welcome.
Villaverde. It's fine.
Villaverde, and even before the show, I'm trying to say Go ahead.
It is the 2nd congressional district, though.
There you go. If you're going to make a mistake, make them in a row, right?
Well, you usually do everything in 3, so that's okay. You're allowed to have one more, right?
Well, hopefully I won't have it tonight. Chris, thank
Nobody's
you
perfect.
very much.
We're all flawed.
Listen, you're right. I'm definitely flawed. I'm a child of God like yourself, and I make mistakes every day, and I appreciate you calling them out and correcting them. Chris, talk a little bit about, what a way to start off a podcast, huh? With 2 fupas. But anyway, that's going to make this podcast even better because we're just regular people trying to represent the country and trying to do the best that we can to bring our country back, the values that are being taken away in all of this mess that's going on in our country today. Chris, I'm going to let you weigh in and give me a little introduction, and then we can talk about some issues in the nation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, first of all, Chauncey, for having me on your podcast and giving me this opportunity to just talk about myself a little bit and let the people out there know that, like you said, I'm not perfect. I'm not a politician. I will never profess to be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. But we should expect from our leaders when they do make mistakes that they can honestly say, yeah, I screwed that one up. I apologize. I'm going to live and learn from it, and I'm going to do better the next time because, like I said, we're all flawed human beings. Nobody's perfect. But as long as you're honest and transparent about that, then, hey, that's life. We all live and learn from our mistakes. But you had a wonderful introduction. Like you said, I kind of had a different background growing up. My father was in the Air Force. He retired after 20 years as a Vietnam veteran, so we moved all over the country with him. I was not a perfect child. I was very rebellious. I dropped out of school when I was 16. I actually met a really good priest. I was raised Catholic that spoke to me and said that he understood that I was going through some things, and just to reflect about, where I wanted to go in the future, and that, of course, it would be easier if I continued my education. I went back and got my GED, and I started at a community college. Moving around after I married my husband in the Army, I was an Army wife for 16 years. It was a struggle. We were constantly moving, had to change jobs, raising a son, trying to finish my education. I didn't, I charted my own path. I went to several different community colleges, and like you said, I eventually finished my degree at Fayetteville State University, which is a predominantly black university, and I got a wonderful education there. I never even thought any differently about it because, you know, I was the minority in that school. But everybody welcomed me. We were all in it together. We all helped each other study, and we helped each other succeed and get our degrees. And, you know, we all brought to it, you know, our own personal backgrounds and our own struggles, and that's what it means to be American. We're all in this fight together, black, white, whatever religion you are. We're all Americans, and we just need to remember that and to lift each other up. Throughout all of this, I was a police officer. I was also a probation and parole officer, and then most recently I was the emergency manager for the state judicial branch. So that's where I was able to get a lot of hands-on, boots-on-the-ground experience actually creating and implementing policy, and that was with my master's degree that I ended up getting from Liberty University in public policy. So I took that education from Liberty with a Christian worldview, and I was able to utilize that to help secure and safeguard the citizens and the judicial branch employees and the sheriffs and everybody that's, you know, in the courthouses across the state, which obviously is a big job normally with hurricanes and fires and floods, but definitely during COVID that kind of threw a whole new wrench in it. And you know, some of my experiences, you know, they were tough, like everybody has tough times, but I wouldn't change a single moment because I am where I am today because of the struggles and the life that I lived. And I'm quite honestly blessed just to be an American and to have, you know, a God that loves me and you know, takes me as I am, flaws and all.
Thank you so much for sharing your humble beginnings and your humble story with us. As I'm listening to you, I realize that we've traveled down some of the same paths and sometimes on the opposite end of the spectrum, but I'll get into that in a minute. I was raised by a Navy veteran who was a Patriot, conservative Republican in the 60s. And I always get a chance to mention that I would have rather have gone into the service than go to college than being raised by a veteran. I always make that note because my dad was tough as nails. You know, high expectations. Discipline was always appropriate in his mind if you didn't toe the line. You know, that helped me in life. Of course, another thing that I had in common with you is I was rebellious. I was the black sheep in my family. Yeah, you know, so
you and I are two peas in the pod.
So, you know, my father, so I got a lot more beatings than my siblings because, you know, I always thought I knew best and always had the answers. And, you know, my father would say, you know, you're going to learn one day. And I'm saying it politely because we're on the air. And he was absolutely right. May he rest in peace. Everything that he's taught me and has said to me that I didn't like has come to pass, and it was appropriate. You know, it's unfortunate that I didn't want to hear it, but, you know, I'm blessed with 4 beautiful children, and I was able to be the father to my children that my father wasn't to me. I couldn't be hard on my kids like my dad was on me. I just couldn't be. You know, it was brutal. You know, so I tried a different approach with my kids, and it worked out well for my children. I also, which I don't know if you know, I am a retired fire captain, and I, too, was appointed for a 3-year term as the emergency management coordinator for the 3rd largest city in New Jersey.
So you know the trials and tribulations of, you know, continuity of operations and planning about what happens, and you can never prepare for every contingency because we just can never. I mean, obviously we're not God, so we can't see the future. we do the best that we can with the information that we're giving, but yes, it's definitely a learning process.
But the reason I wanted to footnote not only my experiences mirror some of yours, but to my listeners, you're talking to a candidate who has worked in crisis situations. That is rare. Most politicians do not come from a background where they're able to work in a crisis situation. So my listeners, please, that is a very important tool that Christine has that most congresspersons don't, unless they were in the military or the service. But emergency management, understanding how to operate under a crisis, coordinating different multiple resources, maybe municipalities, has a good understanding on not only the public, but you can trust that that person will not waver in a crisis situation. And that is very important because we see our politicians today, how they respond in crisis situations, even up into our president, and we're saying, how could they respond in this manner?
Right.
Because they're not used to. Go ahead, Chris.
Or they don't reflect upon the policies that they put into place. They don't see the unintended consequences and then pivot. A lot of them, they just at whatever policy, and they don't have what you and I would call after action reviews. We say what policies and procedures did we put into place? What unintended consequences that were not foreseeable that now we know are not or could be detrimental, and then how do we adjust fire, so to speak, and do things better the next time? And you don't see our leaders doing that. They just, right now we're seeing with Biden where they're just putting these policies into play, and no matter how bad things get, you don't see them changing their course, and that's a failure. That's a failure in leadership. Well noted, and you're right. Because we've served in crisis situations, that's where you can tell where a person's leadership is. Do they stay calm and cool? Are they able to, not react? Are they able to separate their emotions? These things are very, very important. I was a firefighter. If I panicked, I could die. Right. Or the person I was with could die. I didn't have the luxury of panicking. So you develop breathing techniques, being calm, in a building where you can't see or it's burning or whatever. You have to stay calm, because if you don't stay calm, your life or someone's life is at risk, and we understand that, as well as people that have served in the military. Chris, talk about. Well, let's take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, I'd like to talk about some of the issues that are facing your district that you'd like to address. So we're going to take a quick patient break, and we'll be right back.
On day one, as your governor, I will deploy the Arizona National Guard to the border, and I will begin construction on 3 strategic National Guard border barracks so that we can maintain a permanent presence on the Arizona-Mexico border.
Vote Neely for governor in the August 2nd primary election. Paid for by Neely for Arizona.
Welcome back. Okay, Chris, talk about some of the issues, the challenge that you're facing in North Carolina, and how you want to go about addressing them.
Absolutely, Chauncey. I think most issues that are facing my district are, mirror image of probably what's facing most of the nation. Middle class are struggling with out of control skyrocketing inflation, unaffordable gas prices, unaffordable housing prices. If you can even find a house, there's just a lack of housing opportunities out there, skyrocketing Insurance, it's very hard to afford, insurance for any sort of medical insurance these days. We're seeing, unsafe communities. Just crime is running rampant. We're seeing these prosecutors and district attorneys that are deciding not to prosecute crimes that have been duly enacted by our elected legislators. So, I just think across the board, it's just a struggle for families these days, just to budget, to fill up their gas tank, to put food on the table, to feed their families. And then, of course, just recently where you see in the news where you can't get baby formula for your children. And as a mom of 3, that is horrific to me, just thinking that in the United States of America, the greatest country in the world, we cannot feed our most vulnerable population. We can't feed our babies because we either can't afford formula or we can't even get formula. And that is just untenable to me. I can't imagine as a mom, every other thing you're worried about with your children, about them being healthy and, reaching their milestones and, are they quote unquote, normal, having, just making sure during, the time of COVID, and then, struggling to budget for diapers, but then not being able to literally go to the store and find formula to feed your children is horrible to me. I mean, so there's just many kitchen table
Chris,
issues that are
exactly
bad.
Yeah, as I'm listening to you, the impact of the formula issue really didn't take effect until I'm listening to you talk to me about it now. And I'm thinking about all of the poor people that can't get the formula. It's hurting the poorest, the lowest income across the spectrum in this country. It doesn't matter what color you are. Poor is poor, and I just can't imagine. But see, this goes back to the lies that this Democratic Party administration and the Democratic left, they put out this false narrative to divide the country, say we're going to be here to help you, and the opposite has transpired. If anyone has any clear sight, if I was a Democrat, I would run from that party immediately. Because even... Go ahead, Chris. It's just really.
I was just saying, and what you're saying is true. They just are always saying that they're the party of racial minorities and the poor, but every policy they're enacting is detrimental to those people that are the least able to actually to worry about the extra costs in formula, the extra costs in food, the extra costs in gas. I mean, most Americans are one catastrophe away from bankruptcy or being, forced to entitlements. And you have to wonder, purposeful. I mean, do they just want us so dependent upon the government that they control every aspect of our lives because we are going to be forced to apply for food stamps and to apply for Medicaid so that the Democrats can expand their voting base to get more power. So you're seeing the erosion of the middle class where we used to have a comfortable middle class. If you were a blue-collar worker, you could be assured that you would have, a steady paycheck at a mill or working in a corporation or a factory, and it was a steady paycheck. You knew you were never going to be rich, but you had a great, comfortable life. You could afford, gas in your pickup truck. You could afford to feed your family. But now we're seeing that that's not the case anymore, that the middle class is just eroding. So you either are going to be the elites with the haves or you're going to be the haves-nots. There's not going to be a middle class anymore.
Yeah, it really is a shame when, you know, the hypocrisy of the left, the Democrats, you know, during their campaign speech. And I mean, like, to see the outcome, they are the oppressors of the people that vote for them. And the only people that benefit from being a Democrat is if you are an elected official Democrat, or if you got a political patronage job by a Democrat, or you're receiving a contract through a Democrat. Those are the only three people or entities that benefit from the Democratic Party. And that's sad. The people that they purport to represent, they do not represent. And, you know, God is going to catch up with them, because if you look at every major city across any Democratic city, poor education, high crime, high taxes, no food. I mean, and I don't know why these people keep voting for the same thing, expecting different results. I don't get that.
No.
I just don't get that.
The definition of insanity.
I really don't get it. You know, the people are telling you, you know, hope and change is coming. You're still in the same position you were 8-10 years ago. I really don't understand that mindset. I'm so blessed that I was raised by a Navy veteran, Patriot, even with his flaws. I'm so blessed that I was a conservative. That I grew up a conservative, you know. But that's because I admired American history. I admired statesmanship, civic responsibility, civic duty. Alexander Hamilton, John Madison, you know, reading the Federalist Papers when I was a teenager, which I know a lot of people don't do that. I'm a geek, so most people don't get to the Federalist Papers until they're well into their adults. But, I mean, I was following, you know, LaRouche, you know, back in the 80s. London LaRouche. Remember, I don't know if you remember him. You know, who was an ultra-conservative.
I grew up with my father that we emulated Ronald Reagan. He was the ultimate statesman.
Yes.
He, you know, was not always a conservative. He was a Democrat. He was in Hollywood, and then, you know, he just educated himself. He looked at the facts and said that the Democrat way was not working. So Ronald Reagan, ultimate statesman.
Amen. You know, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. I did a paper on Reaganomics when I was in college. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
I did a paper on Ronald Reagan and his relationship with Margaret Thatcher.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Ronald Reagan, at the time, if we had the mainstream media like we had today, what they did to Ronald Reagan is what they did to Donald Trump. He's an actor. I don't know how much you remember, but, I mean, they said he's an actor, this and that, you know, but because the media isn't the way it is, you know, 30 years ago, you know, today you can't even trust what comes out of the media's mouth. Whether it's calling an election, whether it's telling proper news, you know, news has become so opinionated versus factual based on journalism and research that, you know, it's almost like another reality or like a fake reality TV show.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
The news is Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, in this day and age, I don't even know if you can say that, you know, there are any journalists left. They're just talk show hosts.
Yeah, like, I mean, the last journalist I remember, George Wills, you know, people like that. I mean, you know, even Sam Donaldson, going back even more. I mean, at least these people did research and brought you facts. And at news time, today everything is an opinion or crime or everything. You know, it's really, really sad. But let's get back to North Carolina. Yeah, everybody is suffering the kitchen table issues across the country. That is without a question. We're going to take another quick station break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some national issues. and maybe some of the policies that Christine has formulated in her mind that she would like to bring forward when she gets to Congress. So we're going to hear that when we come right back. Stand by.
Another important issue facing Arizona is election integrity. And regardless of how you feel about past elections, we must move forward with legislation that ensures that our voting system is safe and fair, because that's the only way we can restore the Arizona Republic.
Vote Neely for governor in the August 2nd primary election. Paid for by Neely for Arizona.
Welcome back. Let's talk about some national issues, Chris. And if you will, what is your platform for your national issues, or what are some of the national issues that you are most concerned about?
Well, where do I start? Obviously, I'm big into safety and security. We need to secure our border. We can't have a sovereign nation if we do not control the parameters of who, what, where, when, why people are entering into our nation. We had, a border that was pretty secure under Trump. We need to go back and just reevaluate and make sure that constitutionally the administration is upholding the laws, deporting people that need to be deported. Obviously, if there's asylum seekers that are true asylum seekers, then of course they should get the day in court. But as we know, the majority of people that are coming are economic migrants. Of course, I feel sorry for people, but we just cannot absorb that amount of people into our nation without it causing societal upheaval. We just can't. We have to be able to control our borders as a sovereign nation. So, of course, we need to just once and for all concretely overhaul our immigration system, make sure it makes sense, do away with the lotteries, and make sure that the people that are coming to this nation are coming, and the people that we invite into this nation are going to be good for the country, are going to follow our rule of law, and they're going to become upstanding citizens. That's number one, just safety and security on our border. We need to get some fiscal restraint. We have to get the inflation under control. We saw the GDP drop for the first time since World War II. That should not be happening in the United States of America. We have to be strong nationally against China and Russia. We have to have an America First agenda. I was totally with Trump when he got us out of some of these, like the Paris Climate Accords, where the globalists are pushing the climate agenda on us, and that's just destroying our economy. We need energy independence. We can't just day one destroy our energy independence, which is going to destroy our economy. It's fine if we want to go a little more towards renewables, and if people want to have electric cars, so be it. But we don't have the critical infrastructure that we can just right now say, sorry, everybody has to get rid of their gas-fueled car and go buy an electric car. That's not feasible. It just can't be done. So we need energy independence back. We just need to protect our critical infrastructure. So, some of the first bills that I would love to present would be just providing for protection of our critical infrastructure, because we've seen recently where we've had attacks on the Colonial Pipeline by Russia, by, the meat packing plants. It's only a matter of time before they hit our electrical grid, our water sources. We're seeing many of our food plants that have arson. If you can't feed your population, if you don't have clean water and we don't have electricity, we're talking about a crisis like we've never seen before. So we need to protect critical infrastructure. So the basic tenet of our government is to protect its citizenry. And all we're getting from Biden is, those are private corporations. They're going to have to, safeguard, the power grid, and that's just not a good enough answer. We have to do better. We have to have a collaborative working environment to ensure the safety of our nation. It's a national security issue. So I guess that's my short list, although maybe it's not so short.
No, I think that you've hit very, very important points, and I'm going to comment on the border issue, which is very, very sad, not only for the people that have died trying to come to America, but also our border police officers who've been hurt. As a matter of fact, a young man who died trying to save a young child illegally crossing the border. The Democrats are trying to develop a new voting bloc because they're losing the Hispanics and the blacks at alarming numbers. And that's sad, but, I wish that more Americans, well, I know a lot of Americans, and of course the ones that we speak to and the ones that we're in the circle of talk about this, but I don't understand how come people on the left can't realize that, yes, we're a welcoming nation, but who was going to afford to give them housing, clothing, insurance? Where does that money come from? It comes from taxpayers. It comes from people like you and I that work hard every day. We have to pay for that, and we're forced to pay it, and that's not fair. If we have locks on our doors, we should have a secure border. Everyone that's in favor of open borders, then take the front door off of your house and welcome them into your house.
Absolutely.
Okay, but I really, it does a disservice. You're trying to shove this down the people's throats. And when Biden first get elected, and I saw 1,000, 2,000 people with his T-shirts on trying to illegally cross into this country, no one can tell me that was not planned. And it doesn't help our country.
Nope.
Go ahead, Chris.
Nope. I was going to say, and there's just no way you can assimilate the amount of people safely and securely, not to mention the overrun on our hospitals, because all of these people are going to be seeking treatment for free in emergency rooms, our schools, which are already, overburdened and failing as it is. Housing. Housing is so unaffordable. So you have, obviously we don't have the supply. And with the supply and demand, with low supply and high demand, housing costs are going to go even higher. So it's just with the sheer number of people coming in at one time, we just cannot. We just can't assimilate that many people at once. We just can't.
Not only that, Chris, us being former emergency management professionals, how do you not check these people for diseases? You want to put a mask mandate and you want to impose vaccination mandates on U.S. citizens, yet when the people came from Afghanistan, person for COVID, and what happened? Texas, where they were located in Texas at the barracks or wherever they were located, had a severe measles outbreak. Now I understand, Biden, you want to put all of these things on America, yet why are you not placing the same thing on people trying to come into this country? What makes them so special? They're not even Americans, that they don't do a COVID test or measles screening, any type of diseases they might be bringing here into our communities. That is extremely short-sighted and narrow-minded, and all I would go one step further. It's a reckless of duty.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but you're also seeing the cartels that are taking advantage of it because, they'll just shove, 100 people in one direction where they know Border Patrol is going to be tied up with those migrants, and that's when they're bringing the fentanyl across. So now we're seeing, the record number of deaths, and they're not overdoses. These are poisonings because they're putting the fentanyl into, marijuana and ecstasy, and kids are using these substances, for the first time or whatever, and these cartels are lacing their drugs because they want to get people hooked because the fentanyl gives them, that bigger rush. But it's killing these people, and it's murder. So if we can't control the cartels, obviously the fentanyl is not even as horrific as what, is happening with, the people that are being trafficked, these children that are being trafficked, for sex slaves. And these people are indentured slaves until they can eventually pay off the cartels, whatever they had to do to get smuggled across the border. And typically they never pay that off. They're always in servitude. And we don't know what happens to these children and these women. And that's, it's a travesty that this is occurring. And, very little is obviously Fox, Tucker Carlson, places like that are talking about it, but you don't see that on the quote-unquote mainstream media. They don't want to talk about that.
You are absolutely correct, and it is extremely, extremely sad. The media, the mainstream media is corrupt, and it's evident how they slant the news, they lie, even how they in the middle of the night, all of a sudden Biden won. At 11 o'clock, Trump was so far ahead. Biden could never catch up. Then in the middle of the night, they're going to announce that he won. But people are starting to wake up, and that's the good thing. And as long as people are waking up and we keep speaking truth to power and we keep calling out, where they are hurting Americans, we're going to call them out because God will not be mocked. Every man will reap what he sows. I am a witness. So as we're fighting, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, and we're seeing the population slowly waking up. We're seeing where people are no longer just willing to be spoon-fed the information. They're starting to realize that you're only getting one side of the story. So you as an American need to just open up to the fact that what the information you're getting there, no matter who you're getting it from, is going to be slanted in whatever direction. So just take it with a grain of salt. Do your own due diligence, and don't just be lazy. We just have a population that's lazy. They just want to be handed things on a silver platter. They don't want to work for it. But I think now, especially like you said with Winsome Sears and Youngkin in Virginia, we just saw the people in the middle that just want common sense policies back. They just want family first, America first values. They want a quality education for their children. They want affordable gas, and they want to be able to provide, food on their table for their children. So we're seeing a lot of the typical Democrat voters who are going to be voting independent and being swayed to the conservative side just because the Democrats are failing at every policy they've enacted.
I couldn't agree more. And as an African American, which I hate to announce, but I'm referring to myself as an African American for the identity politics of Democrats. they have not ever put a policy in place to advance their most loyal voting bloc, black people. And I challenge anyone, show me where the policy is. Because every one that you can come up with, I can give you 2 laws or policies that the Republicans put in place to advance African Americans. And a lot of Democrats don't even know this. Regular Democratic people. I ask them, name me one policy that the Democrats put in place to advance their most loyal blacks. They can't. There is none. You can't say the civil rights. That was done, but it was a filibuster, 75 days. They didn't want it. Republicans got that through. Voting rights. We can go on and on, and it's sad, well, if you start not teaching the history in school, then that's why they don't know when they get older, and, American history should be critical in school today. More than ever, most people don't know about the 3 levels of government. I mean, just basic functions of government. It's sad. It really is sad that our educational system, you've got a congresswoman, AOC, who doesn't even understand the United States Constitution. Go ahead, Chris. Now I'm going for the dance. Now I'm going to start going off.
I know. Across the board, we are just failing those people across the board when they just try to. There's on the left where they just say free, free, free. And they think that you're just going to, bend over backwards and keep voting for them because they're giving you this for free or this for free. Or, they try to tie things up with a pretty ribbon and how they name different things. But in the end, they're not helping those people that they profess to be, the champions for. They're doing, like you said, everything that harms black and brown children. You're keeping them in schools that are failing. Or even poor people, even white poor people as well. The ripple effect is across the board. But you're right, it's directly affected to blacks because that's the one they're always shouting that, we're here to help you. We're here to be on your side. Yet the schools are failing them. There's crime. You can't walk down the street without hearing gunshots. I mean, I don't get it. There's potholes all over the place. But you're for me? How can you be for me? And like I said, I hope that people will wake up because exactly what Malcolm X spoke about in the 60s about the Democratic Party still rings true today. And it's sad, especially for these so-called bougie or educated black folks. And I can say that because I'm a person of color. Like, why are you Democrat? You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. And you see these elitist African American people, particularly on CNN and CNBC, and they went to private schools and they went to Ivy League schools, but yet they still say they're oppressed. And I'm like, no. Obviously, you don't know what oppression means. You don't have to be a particular color to suffer, to live in poverty. I mean, we see people across the board all over the United States from every background, every color, every religion, and it's poverty. It is equal opportunity. It's not just black and brown children that live in poverty.
Exactly. It's just like as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about politics. Oh, the Republicans are racist. I'm saying to myself, I know I could pick right now 10 people who the GOP Republican Party and they're white don't want to have anything to do with them because they're American first or they're constitutionalists. They believe in the rule of law because those Lino GOPs are part of the establishment. We need to stand up for what's right, people. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. If you fear God, then do the right thing. And that's another thing. Why do they put their hands on the Bible if you're not going to adhere to the laws within it when you get to Congress? God will not be mocked. Every man will reap what he sows. And I'm a witness. My followers on my other show knows about my story. We don't have that much time left, but I'm a witness of God's wrath as well as the blessings now of his glory. You can't play with him. You only got one shot at it. And a lot of people that went down my path are no longer here. So basically, I'm asking people, save yourself before you lose yourself. Please. Because the time is at hand, everyone. Yes, I know I'm a God-fearing person. I know. And because of how God turned my life around, I'm about saving souls. I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty. But we need to try to save more souls if we're going to save this nation. Because
Absolutely.
This is one nation. This is one nation under God. We forgot the tenets in which this country was built. In God we trust. Judeo-Christian values, people. We have to get back. And that's another thing. Where are all these so-called religious leaders standing up, pushing back against this immorality that is transpiring across the country? That's another thing that bothers me. You'll get on TV on Sundays, but where are you on the national landscape against abortion?
Right.
Against so many issues. I mean, it really is sad. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule to come on my show and listen to me. That's a joke, Chris. But before we go, please share some closing remarks. We have about 7 minutes.
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
I'm just so blessed that there's people like you that within their heart they just want to get the message out to people, just to to give us a platform in order to reach more people. Just say that this shouldn't just be a referendum between the Democrats and the Republicans. It should be a referendum, like you said, of just doing the right thing. As Americans, we're all in this together. Like we've got one life. We need to be true to ourselves. We need to be true to our families and our neighbors. And how about instead of pushing other people down, we try to lift our neighbors and our community up. And instead of just looking at the D or the R, how about we start picking our leaders by their morals and their values and their integrity and what they're going to bring to the table. Stop looking at party politics and start looking at the issue. Who is going to represent you with that worldview and that ideology that is going to go and represent you in D.C. with your morals and values, with whatever it is that how you're living your life, with true Judeo-Christian, loving each other, loving thy neighbor, and propping each other up, wanting everybody else to succeed, not saying, hey, I don't want them to be successful because that means I'm not as successful. No, we can all be successful together. If I have a more successful neighbor and my community is more successful, then my state is more successful, and our entire nation can be the greatest nation again. And that's all we want. That's what we should all strive for, is to lift everybody up, all Americans up, so that we can all prosper together.
Amen. 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 Thank you so much for your closing remarks, Chris. Please share your website if people want to contact you or donate to your campaign. And also, if those who are unable to write it down at this time, if you go back to Blog Talk Radio and you look at the description, Christine Villaverde is highlighted. and that link will take you directly. Did I say it right? Directly to our website. Did I say it right, Chris?
Close enough. It's votevillaverde.com.
Okay, Villaverde. I got it now. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to make mistakes. Oh, Chris, this was a fun podcast. It was real. I hope that my listeners got a chance to really get to know who you are, which I think that we accomplished that today. You know, we talked about issues that, like you talked about, kitchen table issues that are affecting everyone's home. And, you know, that should not be in America in 2022. And especially baby formula for children. And this is the stuff that the Democrats always profess. We're for you, we're for you. Well, then how come those supermarkets in those areas are empty? They should ask those questions. You know, and, you know, if they only come around on election time, people, you need to think and really wonder. You know, like Chris said, look at their morals, their values, their integrity, how they live, what they do, not what they say. Like many politicians, what they say they do not do. Chris, thank you so much. Your election's coming up on the 17th. Everyone in North Carolina in the 2nd District, please come out and vote for Christine Villaverde. I'm getting better. Villaverde? Oh, you know what? Now you're laughing at me because I'm trying to... I'm like a little kid trying to learn a language. Okay, well, at least we're having fun with me trying to pronounce your name, and I'm normally pretty good. I'm normally pretty good. I'm going to take one more shot at it. Villaverde.
Yeah, you did it.
Okay, good. Okay, listen, I had to be able to close out the show saying Christine Villaverde.
Yeah.
I said it right. Awesome.
Yep,
Awesome.
Sure did.
Okay. I made my comeback. Chris, thank you so much. I would like to have you back on after you win your primary election and talk about what you're going to do for the general election. Okay?
Most definitely. I am most appreciative of everything, and I look forward to our next conversation.
It's been a blast, Chris. Thank you so much. You know, I enjoyed this show, even the mistakes that I made. Like you said, it shows that we're human and, you know, we do make mistakes. But thank God I was able to correct it before I closed out the show. This is going to be a laughing podcast. Chris, thank you so much again for coming on and taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're traveling 7 days a week all across your district and the state. I keep you and your family in my prayers, you know, as you're going up against the, you know, you got to keep you protected because you know the devil's out there. And you know us, when we serve a higher power, we have to know that the devil is always going to try to knock us off our guard. So I will keep you and your family in prayers while you go into battle on Tuesday, okay?
Thank you. I truly appreciate that.
You're welcome, Chris. God bless you and your family, and take care. We'll talk soon, okay?
God bless you and your family as well. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick station break, and I'll be back to close out the show.
I want to be your infrastructure governor. Now, I've been involved in infrastructure construction throughout Arizona during the last 17 years. I've traveled more than 500,000 miles across Arizona roads, and I've watched the roads decay over the last 17 years. Rural communities need special attention with infrastructure dollars, and as your infrastructure dollar watchdog, I want to make sure that your tax dollars are spent on the right projects in the right places.
Vote Neely for governor in the August 2nd primary election. Paid for by Neely for Arizona.
Welcome back. This is American First Patriot Podcast. Defending freedom and liberty is our motto. We put God first and politics second. Welcome back. I'm your Patriot host, Chauncey. We were honored, proud, and blessed to have in the studio Christine Villaverde, who had an extraordinary background, humble beginnings, dropped out of school, got her GED, and then traveled around the country with her husband, who was in the Army, all the way until she attained her criminal justice degree from Fayetteville State University. An amazing story. These are the type of candidates that we need to elect. Shows integrity, character, moral. In addition, she has worked in other positions in crisis modes. Police officer, law enforcement, emergency management. You cannot get a better prepared person to represent you in Congress, because you know when a crisis occurs, Christine will be there and she'll be on her A game. Like her and I were talking about, you need to really look at the candidates, who they are, morals, integrity, what they've done, not what they say they're going to do, because their track record of what they've done will show you who they will be. Christine is that woman, and I am so looking forward to her winning on Tuesday, her election, because she's going to be a breath of fresh air for the 2nd District in North Carolina. She's going to be a fresh air to the nation. I urge everyone across the country now, we must get out and vote, elect America First candidates, God-fearing candidates, people that are going to put people over politics first. It's up to us, people. We have to do it. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight to American First Patriot Podcast. Please, you can follow us all over social media. I also want to point out real quickly, thanking our almost 8,000 followers in 2.5 months on Twitter. Thank you so much for your support. If anyone wants to call in and ask candidates or anyone a question, the call-in number is 563-999-3451. I want to thank all for tuning in and listening tonight. Have a happy, safe, and blessed weekend. God bless you all. And remember, keep the faith. Good night now.